Welcome, we are Ana Enguera, Adrián Jiménez,
Hello.
and Ramon Bobet.
Hello.
And today we are going to discuss two main topics about the novel in English. The first one, it deals with novels of the 19th century, and the second one is about the Roaring Twenties. What impressions do you generally have about novels in this historical period?
Let me break the ice. Okay, on this question. I consider that novels, as itself, in this period tends to be, they tend to be dislocated by means of the colonialism and, of course, of the expansion of the British Empire, who struggled both women and the called newcomers. These kind of newcomers, they were suppressed in the same way as women were, because when you recall upon the British Empire, we must think that it was really authoritarian. So society was monopolized by the men in power. Examples of it in novels. We all know Wuthering Heights. In Wuthering Heights, we've got the image of Heathcliff portrayed as an outcasted man. A man took from a piece of land and brought to the civilized world, as we could call it. Then we have Catherine as the female character, who represents by all means the struggle of women in such society. An example of it again would be when she has to marry Edgar instead of Heathcliff, who was her real love, broadly speaking. So up to this point, we have to keep in mind that women and these kind of outcasted people, or let's call them foreigners, they would never have success in such world, in such society.
Well, yes, Adrián, I completely agree with you. And in addition to what you said, well, I would like to say that Wuthering Heights is a great novel that, in some way, we could say that it's representative of the context of the Victorian period, because it deals with topics such as colonialism, slavery, and love during the Victorian period. Well, we can see the topic of colonialism depicted in the character of Heathcliff. Heathcliff would follow the archetype of the Byronic hero, because it plays the role of an evil character, but in some way we empathize with him, because we have to understand his context. I mean, in some way he's like both adopted but acquired, like bought as a slave in some way by the head of the family and brought to the house. We can see that his situation is not the same as the situation of Catherine's brother, or Catherine, you know. And well, the situation when Catherine falls in love with Heathcliff highlights in some way the issues of colonialism, because we can see that none of them have freedom, because he's not able to marry her until he's able to escape his situation and become a free man. And Catherine is not able to marry him because in some way the Victorian society was a very patriarchal society, and she had to marry the person that her family asked her to marry, and well, I mean, in some way, from my point of view, this depicts the Victorian, depicts and summarizes the Victorian period. And talking about the Victorian period, I would like to link this novel with Jane Eyre, which I also identify with the Victorian period, and it also deals with similar topics such as colonialism, love and feminism. Well, it more centered in the topic of feminism because the topic of colonialism stays more in the context, but well, I think that in this novel we can also see the patriarchal structure that the Victorian society had. What do you think about it? Yes, you interrupted me before, and I thought you wanted to introduce the topic of Jane Eyre, and I didn't let you interrupt me, but I would like you to know what you think about
now
this
you
novel.
can go ahead.
Yeah. Well, according to what you said about women, in my point of view, what I consider as a women in the 19th century involves to follow the standards of that society, the Victorian period, and which were ought to be humble, well-educated, charming, emotionless, powerless, pure. And to put it in a nutshell, the word is known as the angel in the house. And another example that we can find related to that stereotype of the girl and the archetype of the women in the Victorian period, it appears in Washington Square, where Catherine is a young girl that lives with his father. She's very repressed by his authoritarian father, and she can't make decisions for herself, and also she can't she's unable to live up her own aspirations and desires.
Yeah, I mean, I reach your point completely on that. I would like to add now that, as you have been saying right now, that there was no happiness in their lives. Women, they were just merely handcuffed. And following this trend, I would like to go into deep on the theme of materialism reflected on money in the novels of The Great Gatsby and, of course, The Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah, if you let me interrupt you, Adria, I would like to say about these novels that well, in some way they reflect very well the situation in the 20s, in the 1920s and the beginning of the 1930s. That was when these novels were written. Well, in some way, this period of time during the 20s, we can see that the United States was able to enjoy an economic expansion that allowed a great part of the population to live very ostentatious lives, full of luxuries, and you know, in Great Gatsby we can see that it's based on parties, alcohol. It was the period of time of the Prohibition, and well, we can see that the main character has a lot of money, and yeah, well, because everybody had a lot of money and could afford to buy alcohol, and well, I don't know, it's just like the economy was so high that people just cared about material things, about having fun, about ostentatious lives. And well, another novel that was written in this period was Grapes of Wrath, that, well, in some way depicts society after this great expansion. Well, there was a big fall and well, a Great Depression that took most of the society to a situation of poverty, and they had to struggle to look for a job. For example, in the Grapes of Wrath, we can see a family that has to struggle to find a job in the agricultural sector in order to earn a living, in order to feed their kids and to survive. And well, we can see the two sides of the coin with these two novels that describe in some way this period of time. And well, yes, would you like to add
Yeah, I
something
see
on
your point.
Yes.
And besides, in The Great Gatsby is shown the American dream by the eyes of Nick, who is the narrator. Thus, in comparison to Nick's reality, we can focus on the sorrow of the Grapes of Wrath with this family that tries to survive in this false American dream. And similarly, we have the comparable loss of values in relation to women's struggle that you mentioned before, and typically from the Victorian period. And that is to say, in the Roaring Twenties, women have free choice into a certain extent to marry with someone, but the effort was still existing due to the women welfare. And again, we have a misconception of reality.
You're completely right upon that. I would like to conclude and our discussion by stating that through different novels that we have been, of course, been working, we can see that in these different spheres of society, we could call them more or less advanced, but we have the same nightmares, we have the same authoritarianism, we have the same world which is mainly monopolized by men. So I would like to end up our conversation by saying that The Great Gatsby and The Grapes of Wrath are like our moon, in the sense that one face is really bright, shiny. It's really we are able to check it and analyze it, for example, and then the other face or the other side of the moon, as I just introduced, is dark, cold, depressive. So that will be everything.
Thank you.